Welcome to Darshan America, folks. We come to you from Washington, D.C. My name is Ramesh Bhutani.
And I'm Asta Verma.
Well, this is the political campaign time, and of course, Time magazine gave Rick Perry a wonderful portrait. Last time I remember when candidate Obama was running, and he was in some of these magazines, and you thought, oh my God, he looks so handsome. He should be the president. What do you think the handsomeness of Rick Perry?
Well, I think he does come across as sort of a commanding presence. If you watch the debates, the last Tea Party debate, he certainly looked presidential. However, for me, personally, watching him up close, his answers seemed to imply he was more of a stuffed shirt than really having substantive answers to some of these questions. What I found instead was I was drawn more towards Romney than I was Rick Perry, even though Rick Perry, for the moment, seems to have all the attention.
And rightfully so, I guess, because he isn't a blunt talk. He's a straight talker. He's not trying to give you spins. He's just saying, you know, hey, I'm going to get certain things wrong. You'll know about it. And I'll tell you I did it wrong. For instance, the debate HPV vaccine. He said, hey, he should have had an opt-out plan in it. It should not have been an executive order. But he says, I got it wrong, so I admit. And, of course, at the same time, what he's doing for illegal immigrants much better than what Romney's saying. Romney's saying, no one is allowed to stay in the state. He's saying, well, if they got here, you can't throw them out. Might as well educate them, give them in-state tuition, which I thought was pretty generous of him. And he says the federal government has to still make sure that there's no illegal immigration. I thought he was kind of straight.
I think there's a lot of people who see George Bush in Rick Perry. And I don't know that that is going to serve him very well. Even though he has a certain swagger and a confidence that he brings to the table, I think people will quickly tire of that. Interestingly enough, you mentioned the HPV vaccine. I read this article in the Washington Post about how women are very slow to embrace Rick Perry. Now, you might find that surprising because he is handsome and he's all the characteristic things that you would want in a president as far as what he should look like or what you might envision a president to look like. But the fact is women are not turned on by Perry. For example, in the Washington Post ABC News poll, Perry did lead Mitt Romney 31 to 20% among men, but he trailed Romney by 1% amongst women. In the Quinnipiac poll that came out in Virginia just last Friday, Perry was up 49% to 33% among men. Again, not surprising. But once again, he's trailing when it comes to women, 40% to 37% among women. And the reason, I think, is because this is a great analysis done by the author on this. Perry is a man's man. He doesn't hold back, says what's on his mind. He's a risk taker and he's macho.
Yeah.
But Romney, on the other hand, is more comfortable. He inspires security, maturity. He's someone you can bring home to mom, but he doesn't light any fires. I thought that was a very apt description of the two, because when you observe them, especially during the debates, you definitely saw that, you know, of the back and forth, Romney, I think, held the more mature upper hand. Rick Perry came across as just sort of throwing out, the same old rhetoric that we've seen over and over again. And I think that'll get him so far. But it's, as this article shows, you know, he needs to come up with a bit more to attract women and to attract the people in the center. He's already disadvantaged by the fact that most women are Democratic leaning. And with his HPV vaccine decision, what he did was he alienated a lot of conservative women on the Republican side who didn't agree with that move.
That is not his move. That was the science behind it. But let's move on from there between the two people. Now, here's Rick Perry from Texas A&M, calls himself Aggie. And, you know, Aggies are so together. I mean, they really are. And he was a leader among them. And at the same time, you know, you look at Mitt Romney, blue blood, and definitely Ivy Leagues.
I have a point there. I think that Rick Perry definitely strikes more to that sort of middle America blue collar America to Midwest America, because he embodies some of what people there live as a day-to-day life. And that's an advantage that he has over Romney or President Obama. But the reality is you have to have solutions to these problems. You can't just come at it with rhetoric and expect people to line up behind you. People want solutions.
That is so true. President Obama, yes, he's an elitist. I think he's an academician. He's not really, has never ran a payroll. One of the things that I see, and I see it very clearly, when 50% of the people don't pay taxes, there's something wrong. I mean, then you call the other 50% that who actually pay taxes, that's many of them who pay the most taxes are elitists, they are millionaires, billionaires, and suck them more, do some more. I saw an article in Washington Post which I thought was, folks, absolutely wonderful. You understand that there are a total of 172 tax breaks on the code, and of course, that's Treasury. The Congressional Office thinks there are 400 tax breaks. Now, what is a tax break? Tax breaks is a spending that really doesn't count as a spending. So if you take away all the tax breaks, you will double the income coming into the government, but you certainly don't want them to spend that much money. So you certainly want to take away some of the programs that are happening, but you can't do it all at the same time. So what you do is you reduce the taxation on the lower middle class and the middle class and the upper middle class and the rich people. You lower the tax rate. That is what needs to be done.
Provided that upper echelon bracket actually does what the Republicans, for example, John Boehner, Speaker of the House, says they would do, which is to create jobs. I don't know that that's true. What's to say that these people who are in the upper echelon, in that top 1%, the Warren Buffett crowd that says they're undertaxed, what's the guarantee that these people, if you do give them additional tax breaks or you take away some of the tax burden from them, that they will actually create jobs? What if they just stockpile the money and invest overseas like many of them are doing in countries like India and China, and they're not helping the domestic economy?
That is absolutely true, but at the same time a little misleading. For instance, folks, and I'll give you an example. I own a business. I have a subchapter S corporation. So any money that is made in my company goes directly to me.
And
I
you
pay
in
tax.
turn pay to your employees, etc.
No, after I've paid the employees, after I have paid all the vendors,